It is now my great pleasure to welcome to the stage the Prime Minister of Australia, Mr. Scott Morrison.
Well, thank you very much, Joseph, and to Angela as well, to Major General Jeffrey and Mrs Jeffrey, to my parliamentary colleagues, Christopher Pyne, the Minister for Defence, and David Coleman, the Minister for Immigration, Multicultural Affairs and Citizenship. I know that gig pretty well. And so does the fellow down here, Philip Ruddock, who I acknowledge as well. And so does Tony Burke, who's recommending, I'm sure, the Leader of the Opposition, but you see me representing him here tonight. And to Anthony Albanese, who's been a friend of these awards as well for many years. It's great to be here, for Jenny and I to be here again together this evening. We've been a friend of these awards, and of course Joseph and Angela, for many, many years. And I've addressed this gathering before in different roles, but I've got to tell you, to be able to address you tonight as Prime Minister is very special, because and I've just noticed Zeta Selja is here also tonight. It's good to see you here as well, Zed. There are many great things about being Australian, and to have the great privilege to lead Australia, and to be able to say you're the Prime Minister of the greatest and most successful immigration country on earth, I think is very special, because that is who we are. This country is an immigration success story without parallel anywhere in the world, and we should be enormously proud of what we have all achieved over generations and generations. The Australia we love and share is an immigrant country. Now, I am the son of an immigrant many times removed. My forebears came under the compulsory immigration plan of the British back in the 1780s. But you know, their story wasn't that different, well, apart from the serving a sentence for the first 10 or so years. But they went out to Richmond and Windsor, and they married in Sydney. They started a business. It was an agricultural business. They started a farm and built a life for themselves out of what was extraordinary adversity. And each generation after that sought to build on that and make their way and build this country. The story is no different if you turned up 10 generations ago or you turned up 10 days ago. It's the same story. And we've been telling that story as a country for a long time. Unless you're an Indigenous Australian, who we acknowledge tonight, and elders past and present, and in the future, we have all come from somewhere else at some point. And that's what actually bonds so much of us together, because that is our story. Over the last 20 years, our population has grown by some 6 million people, about as many as it was there when our federation was born. And half of that growth, more than it in fact, has been the result of immigration. So it is integral to our Australian success story as a people, as a prosperous people, as a positive, outward-looking people. It's who we are. It's integral to our economy, it's integral to our identity, and it is who we are. And it didn't happen by accident. This is very important. This idea that Australia would be an outward-looking immigrant society was not born in the post-war period. Henry Parkes, the father of federation, said this in the 1800s. He said that he hoped Australia would become a nation that would gather all the fruits of the culture of the world, and that those who adopt our land would serve it with a patriot's love. I think if Sir Henry Parkes could have projected forward tonight and seen the fruits of the culture of the world celebrated here tonight, he'd be feeling pretty happy with the vision that he saw all those years ago in this very city. Because it is our experience. And I've been reflecting a lot on it in the last few days, the last couple of weeks. And I've thought about it as I've reflected on the life of Sisto Malaspina. Sisto told people he could vividly recall the day he arrived in Australia 54 years ago in October 1964. After almost a month at sea, his two older brothers were waiting for him at Station Pier in Port Melbourne. There was a warm reunion, and then Sisto slid into the car for the drive to his brother's house in Essendon. The first Australian he met was a man named Jim. It wasn't Bruce, it was Jim. And after welcoming Sisto to Australia, Jim got straight to business. He said, "Now, young man, you're in Essendon. You're in Australia. You must follow and barrack for Essendon." Is there a more Melburnian way to welcome to Australia than that? And that was the start of Sisto's love for Australia and the Essendon Football Club. Sisto's story of moving to Australia was like so many others. He was the baby in his family. In Italian, of course, Sisto means sixth born. With his brothers and sisters, he grew up in a small town in northern Italy where his parents owned a restaurant. And as soon as he turned 18, he followed his brother's footsteps. He packed his bags, farewelled his family and friends, a story familiar to many people in this room, and migrated to Australia. Sisto's first job was here in a factory recycling tyres. But within a decade, he'd taken the reins of Pellegrini's Espresso Bar, an Italian cafe on Burke Street, and inch by inch, day by day, year by year, he turned it into one of Australia's and Melbourne's greatest institutions. He was known for saying, "Here we give you more than food. This is your home away from home." And it is more than a cafe. It's more than a business. It's more than a Melbourne community icon. It is one with a global reputation. Its proprietor, Sisto Malaspina, became a living legend until a moment. Sisto was unique, but the richness and generosity of his heart that he brought to Australia surpassed that. It was so typical of the hundreds of thousands who have made their way to our land over many years. People have created businesses, worked hard, raised families, looked after each other, came to make a contribution, not take one. And in that moment, Sisto was taken from us by the hand of something that has no place in this country. What triumphed was not the hand of evil, but the love and the passion and the heart of a great Australian. That conquers these things every time. That's why Australia and what Australia is about conquers every time. What you have done, what you have worked for, what you have achieved is the best of Australia. And it conquers all those things that would seek to undermine this country. That's what we celebrate tonight. We celebrate these stories. Caring, compassionate, generous stories, hard-working stories, vibrant personalities, vision. Migrants arriving here like Joseph with a suitcase full of dreams. Pursuing those dreams, enriching Australia's society, the Australian economy, Australian lives, the heart and soul of our nation. What I talk about as a fair go for those who have a go is what fairness in Australia means. And that's no better demonstrated by the migrant communities of Australia and the ethnic communities of Australia. So today, we are the most successful immigration country on earth, thanks to Sisto Malaspina and all of those who've walked in his shoes and will walk in his shoes in the future. Tonight marks 30 years of the Ethnic Business Awards, and it's so wonderful to see the evolution of the awards over that period of time, Joseph, and your life's passion in your post-business career, shared by Angela. It's also wonderful to see that these awards over many years have also now embraced our first Australians, our Indigenous Australians, and celebrated their tremendous success stories as we create the connection between Indigenous Australians and the rest of us who came. and we have the connection in values and aspirations, and I think that's what this night also celebrates. There is a spirit of entrepreneurship sweeping across so many Indigenous communities, and it's fantastic to know that that's being recognised tonight. I honour it, and I want to be part of that force and that change and that passion that continues to encourage you on. And in doing so, I also want to encourage and thank Joseph and Angela for founding these awards, and all of those who have worked with Joseph and Angela over these years to make them the success that it clearly is. We, of course, as a government are committed to seeing businesses succeed, people who take risks succeed, people who put it all on the line for our great nation to succeed, to employ young Australians. Nothing better than seeing a young Australian get a job. Changes their world, changes their life, changes their future. And so that's what we celebrate tonight. I congratulate all the nominees for all the work you've put in. I hope you'll enjoy celebrating the night and celebrating all the nominees tonight. Some will win, some will come back and win next time. We've seen that before, haven't we, Joseph? Because you stick at it and you succeed, and we've seen it. And so I hope you do have a very pleasant evening. I want to close tonight by turning back to Sisto once more. If coffee has a spiritual home, Italy might just pip Australia. In Italy, they follow a Bible when it comes to drinking coffee. Italians usually don't drink cappuccinos after midday, and it's unthinkable to have one after dinner. But guess what? Sisto disagreed with such hard and fast rules. He'd say people should drink their coffees how they like it, the way they like it, when they like it. It might sound like a small thing, but that respect for others and tolerance and acceptance of difference is the foundation for modern Australia. I wonder if you'd just join with me, just for a brief moment. Let's just remember Sisto. So congratulations on everything you do. My hope is that our wonderful shared story of harmony, of success, of prosperity as a diverse but united people will continue well into the future. Thank you. Enjoy your coffee.